Hello everyone, this is Biswajita from IIT Delhi, India. On behalf of my co-authors, Professor Taylor and Professor Abhishek, we would like to thank ARF, Advertising Research Foundation, and Journal of Advertising Research for publishing our work and for giving us this platform to talk about our work. I would also like to thank Nanit for her introduction. This paper is titled as Roadblock Advertising in Digital Context. Does paying to limit competing messages pay off? This particular work derives motivation from the ever-changing digital landscape. Broadly, we observe three habit change among consumers all over the world. One is because of media fragmentation, which refers to multiple media to consume our information or entertainment. Multitasking consumers globally who are attending to multiple tasks at the same point in time, also lower attention span with each passing generation. When we look at consumers' preference for digital formats, we see that there is a fastest growing consumption for digital videos, especially. So much so that global digital video viewership is projected to reach 3.5 billion by 2023. So with emergence of different formats of digital video content, there is enough challenge for advertisers. And increasingly it is seen that shorter digital videos provide greater return on investment to advertisers. Hence, they need to come up with multiple formats to suit shorter digital videos. A few of such formats are listed on the screen, which is 6-second video advertisements. Of course, they offer no options to skip. There are also skippable advertisements, which are maybe a couple of seconds duration, but they give an opportunity to skip those advertisements. There are also bumper advertisements, which are mostly pre-roll advertisements, which find position before beginning of a digital video. There are also short advertisements, which are typically 19 to 20 seconds duration, but these are also unskippable. When we move to different advertising formats, we observe that across medium, and there is an advertising format that's prevalent, which is roadblock advertising. Even though roadblock advertising has been happening over a couple of years globally, it did not find mention in advertising literature. It also lacked definition. In this particular study, we are trying to define roadblock advertising and also trying to study it from a 360-degree view, whether roadblock advertising is better as compared to regular way of advertising or cluttered advertising, whether roadblock advertising types, which are predominantly two types, within pod and across pod, are equally effective or not. And last but not the least, whether these two types of roadblock advertising are equally effective for familiar and new brands. When we look at roadblock advertising, the definition here is blocking of advertising space or airtime across multiple media alternatives in a listening or viewing frame in a given time slot by a particular advertiser for its brand. What do I mean by that? When we are talking about media vehicles, typically when we are looking about television advertising, there a media vehicle would refer to multiple television channels that we saw. And a viewing frame is the screen, the television screen. That also acts as a listening frame because audio visuals are the format of content there. And when we talk about time slot, it is duration of the programs that we watch. Similarly, if we draw an analogy from the subway or any flight that we board, suppose we are boarding a flight and we are in that space for a couple of hours for the entire duration of flight. So that duration will refer to the time slot. And the viewing or listening frame here, we don't have any listening frame, but the viewing frame would refer to the baggage space or the cabin space around us, which typically are bombarded by a particular advertiser for its brand. And there, when we are viewing some program on our device, laptop or mobile device, there the screen will act as the viewing and listening frame. and rest of it is the same as in television. So when we move to define roadblock advertising, after that, we also wanted to see that how it affects us. What would be the theoretical background, the explanation? What should be the conceptual background? We came to know that the fluency effects actually suits it better, because when we experience a stimulus multiple times, time and again, we all experience fluency effects. Fluency effects are nothing but the ease with which we are able to process a stimulus better, the ease with which we make sense better of that particular stimulus, and also the ease with which we are able to process the different features of the advertising stimulus, the structural characteristics of the advertising stimulus, etc. So processing fluency is something that forms the core or the core conceptual background of this particular paper, the overarching theory. And there are two types of processing fluency, which is perceptual and conceptual. Overall, fluency effects, they form the overarching background or conceptual background in this particular paper. We conducted 3 different experiments in this particular study. Before we conducted the main experiments, we conducted series of pre-tests to finalize the advertisement, the program, the product categories, etc. And also for higher external validity, advertisements from real brands were taken into account. Similarly, opinion from advertising industry experts were also taken into account for finalization of advertisement program and product categories. And last but not least, the respondents for all three experiments are actual audience. So they were also selected from the actual audience panel of such programs. When we talk about study 1, which compares roadblock advertising effectiveness with respect to typical clutter conditions or regular way of advertising, we found that roadblock advertising is much better with respect to all measures, be it recall for brands, be it attitude towards advertisement, attitude towards brand, or purchase intention towards brands. So roadblock advertising, of course, came as a winner with respect to cluttered way of advertising. In study 2, where we looked at 2 types of advertising, across pod and within pod, we call it also distributed and concentrated advertising, roadblock advertising. Here we compared, it is a comparative study, and we found out that within pod conditions are better than across pod roadblock advertising. Similarly, in study 3, it takes it to the next level, where we see effectiveness of these 2 types of roadblock advertising on 2 types of brands, familiar and new brands. So it is a 2x2 experiment, and it was found that the across pod conditions, irrespective of within pod and across pod conditions, for familiar brands, the results are better with respect to all measures. And last but not the least, the study, of course, offers many theoretical and managerial implications. Here, we would like to focus on the managerial implications, and brands with really small budgets can also take advantage of roadblock advertising so that within a shorter period of time, they achieve the desired brand recall. Attitude towards the brand is also achieved. Similarly, for public awareness campaigns, which aim for a higher reach and awareness, roadblock advertising can also come handy. Some advertising clustering decisions, where these are decision dilemmas, especially, their study 1 and study 2 results could come as some help. When we talk about Netflix, which is an OTT platform, and some platforms like Netflix, which are suffering and which are challenged by the subscription fees. So Netflix as a platform has been reporting losses for a couple of quarters now, and it is in need for a lower subscription version. Their roadblock advertising can come handy, because in the segments of viewers, there are also ad tolerant viewers, which can be encashed with roadblock advertising. So some targeted but relevant advertisements can be conducted in the formats of roadblock advertising, and so that they reach this particular audience without crossing the line into annoyance. So these are some of the pointers for managers which can be considered. With that note, I would like to thank all of you again for your patient hearing. And I would also like to thank my co-authors for collaborating with me for this particular study. Thank you so much.